Hey everybody, welcome to the June 11th MakerDAO community call. My name is David. I am the community development lead here at MakerDAO, and I facilitate these calls every Tuesday. And we've been doing these calls for the better part of almost 2 years, and we're really glad to have you this week. So this week we have, well, sorry, to give you a bit of a preamble to the call, we go through all the stuff that's been going on in the MakerDAO universe, everything from things that are going on in governance, technical milestones, integrations, uh, highlights from the community, you name it. We go over everything that at least I saw notable, and I share the document around and I ask people to add to it if I miss anything. But generally speaking, we get a pretty well-rounded review of the week. And also, every now and then we have a guest on the call. And so this week we have Georgy from WireX on the call. And
Hi
WireX,
guys.
yeah, Georgy, if you want, you could introduce yourself, and so the first like 15 minutes of the call, we're gonna give to Georgy, and we're gonna talk a bit about WireX and their Dai integration and what's on the horizon for them.
Sure, should I start? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Georgy. I'm one of the co-founders of WireX. For those of you who don't know the project, we've been around since late 2014. So in this market, it's quite a survivor. We launched our first, at the time it was Bitcoin debit card in early 2015, January or February. What was available back then was purely web interface, and users could convert their bitcoins into US dollars on the card, which is still the core of the product, the main base of it. But now we have developed it quite a lot. There's been a few ups and downs, lots of different things. So where we're now is it's not just a Bitcoin debit card, it's a payment platform called WireX. Back in the days, it was called eCoin. Some of you may even remember that far. So now we have cards in Europe for users in Europe. Those cards are in euros, GBP, or US dollars. The euro and GBP cards actually come with linked bank accounts, so people have IBANs linked to them. It's possible to top up the cards via bank transfer, via another linked card, or via cryptos, which was the initial drive. Basically, even then, in early 2015, we realized that the crypto community was growing, but there was no real way for people to, no convenient way for people to spend their cryptos. You couldn't go to your corner shop and buy a coffee or groceries or pay your bills with Bitcoin. So rather than going after every single merchant in the world and trying to convince them to start accepting cryptos, we chose another way. We tried to link the crypto financial system with the existing one and simply ride on the existing infrastructure of Visa, which already has like 40 million merchants around the world, and I think 20 million ATMs or something like that.
Right.
Which seemed like an easier way to help adoption of cryptocurrencies, because we all know one of the main qualities of any currency is means of exchange. So if you just sit on it and you don't transact, if you just hope it will grow in value, or purely speculate like we saw happening in late 2017, which was a very unhealthy situation. As a currency, it doesn't perform one of its main functions. So we are focusing on payments. We want cryptos to be used for payments. We have since then added quite a number of other coins except for Bitcoin on the platform. And Dai was and still is our first and only stablecoin. And it goes quite in line with the whole philosophy of driving adoption and using crypto as a payment method, as opposed to just means of accumulating wealth or using it to hodl. We started talking with MakerDAO in the middle of last year, and then this relationship developed quite quickly, and we're trying to expand it. So now, initially, when we launched Dai, it was available only to users in Europe. We were taking quite a conservative approach.
So Georgi,
Yeah.
really quickly, the card, like besides Dai, like the Bitcoin card and
Yeah.
the other cryptos, is it available outside of Europe, generally speaking? Like, how far did you guys get with that
Back in
jurisdiction?
the days, we were able to send cards to 130 countries in the world
Wow,
based on a single issuer and just piggyback riding on their e-money license. But
great.
regulations changed since then, and that issuer they were called Wavecrest. They were based in Gibraltar. They are now history. Whereas thankfully we were I don't know, lucky enough or smart enough to anticipate that happening, and when it happened, we were already in integration with an alternative issuer. So right now, officially, the cards are only available in Europe. We
Mm.
also did kind of a special arrangement for MakerDAO as a company. We are in the process of issuing cards, employee cards, to all employees around the world, regardless of where they are. But that is done in kind of a like one-off manual mode. We're verifying those users individually. We're issuing those cards, technically speaking, to our London office address. So these are kind of partner cards. This is an interim solution before the time when we have proper corporate cards on WireX Business, which is another product that we have for companies,
Mm.
not just for retail users. And what the cards essentially allows to do is spend any cryptos instantly or buy any cryptos instantly wherever you are, wherever you
So
see a Visa logo.
So is it one card that you can top up with any crypto, or is it like one card per type of crypto? Like, is there like a Bitcoin card and a Dai
No.
card?
No. It's one card in the currency of the card, euro, pound, or US dollar, which you can top up with any crypto available on WireX, which at the time includes right now it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Dai, Nano, Waves, Wallow, and Lumens from Stellar. We will be further expanding that list to make more crypto community members happy. But for the foreseeable future, Dai will remain the only non-WireX stablecoin on the platform. And it's essentially, if you get a transfer in Dai, if you get paid in Dai, whatever the use case, you can just go and instantly spend it with the card.
So how do you guys count that? Is it always one Dai $1 for you guys, or do you go off of some like spot price Oracle? Do you guys charge a fee? What's the construction there?
For the time being, the integration is not directly with the CDP or not with Dai platform directly. Although we are in talks with the business development team about offering the CDP functionality on WireX as well. That might come in the near future. At the moment, we're taking because WireX is not an exchange itself. We are taking liquidity from various exchanges or OTC desks that we're integrated with. So with Dai, we currently work via Bitfinex. So whatever the rate on Bitfinex is, we, depending on the currency pair, we include a small fee to cover our expenses of exchanging, sending money back and forth. Essentially, we make it instant, whereas for us it takes quite a while. So when you exchange Dai for dollars, for example, we on every dollar we add half a cent, and that's about it. And you get money right in your card. With less liquid currencies, it's the fee may be a little higher. I think with euros and pounds, it's like 1%, not 0.5%, because we have to perform two conversions in the back end. It's quite a complex system in itself. It's also possible to exchange it into cryptos and from cryptos, which for some reason seems to be the more popular use case at the moment on the platform. And I'm actually interested to hear from you. Maybe you have some thoughts as to why this is happening, because we were both us and MakerDAO's team were expecting fiat crypto and crypto fiat functionality to be the most demanded. But quite contrarily, we see that the most popular use case is, say, buying Bitcoin for Dai. which you can do quite in a number of other places. I'm not saying WireX is not good for it. I'm just saying that there's a number of places you can do that, but that's at the moment a more popular use case than converting Dai into dollars or buying Dai for GBP or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think it probably has to do with the types of people that are using cryptocurrency and their outlook on the future. I feel like there's still like a really big concentration of, okay, if you're spending money, you probably already have the means to do that via your current credit card or debit card or your regular bank account. And to spend crypto is like a unnecessary step that incurs a fee that you don't necessarily need to do, because your crypto could be just be your crypto, and even though you might be holding Dai, using it in compound or whatever, like
Mm.
to spend Dai is in the modern world, for people that do already have access to bank accounts, I feel it's like the delta hasn't been covered yet. So I think
Yeah.
we probably see more like speculative investor oriented activity rather than like retail consumer based activity. That's
Yeah.
my like
Quite
theory. I'm totally talking out of math.
quite possible, yeah, because arguably hedging is still the main use case for stablecoins
Right.
globally, and we're working on giving it more use cases, but there's only that much we can do. We're taking small steps forward.
So Georgy, I know that you guys integrated Dai in early February of this year. Did you guys increase the fees during this several month period where the peg was like floating underneath $1 pretty consistently? How did you guys handle that whole sort of peg instability situation?
Well, for us, because we are taking, if a user wants to convert Dai one way or another, we just exchange it on an exchange
Right.
in the backend, and then we would translate that rate to the user. So for us, it's less of a concern than it might be for other ecosystem participants.
Mhm.
So I'm
So
not.
So the way it worked was that you guys would convert at whatever the rate was, and then charge an additional 0.5% for whatever the convenience fee that
Yeah,
since you guys are carrying float and all of that. Okay, that makes sense. That
yeah.
makes sense. That's awesome. Cool.
So
Um,
going back to the, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead. It's all you.
Going back to the question of where the cards are available, they are currently available in Europe, but we are working hard on launching in APAC, in Southeast Asia, and we will do so hopefully by August this year. What will make that card better than the ones we have in Europe? I actually want an Asian card myself, because it's unlike the European one that will get there, but at the moment it's still a card either in euros or in pounds or in dollars. The Asian card will be a multi-currency card.
Mhm.
So whichever currency you spend in, any of the Asian currencies in the countries where we launch, that conversion will happen at interbank rates. Because at the moment we're still the fiat part of the card is still not ideal. If you have a euro card but you spend in GBP, Visa, not ourselves, but Visa and the issuer charge you the FX fee for exchange, which won't be the case in Southeast Asia. We will launch with a multi-currency bin straight away, and it will be a multi-currency card. We eventually will bring this to Europe as well, which will make it a better tool from a pure daily use point of view. But yeah, small steps. And in the
So
regions, yeah, go ahead.
So a quick question about how that works. So if I was in like a couple of different Asian currencies, let's say I'm in Japan and then I fly over to China, I could use the same card, and irrespective of where I am and what currency, all the conversion is abstracted away for the user, and it all happens at the interbank rate. So it's like a cheaper rate overall, and for the user, it's like a seamless experience, right? Is that kind of how
Yeah,
it works?
yes, it is. It's not in every currency yet, so those
Yeah.
will be like APAC currencies.
And the
But yeah,
European cards, you have to pre-configure the base currency up front. So if you have like a euro card, you can't spend US dollars through that card, right?
no,
Is
you,
that
you
is that
can
right?
you
You
can,
can.
but you don't have to pre-configure anything. It's a euro card, and you can pay
Okay.
anywhere in any currency. but you will incur a fee, not from us again, from Visa, from this network, which is quite standard,
Okay.
similar as when you use your any high street bank card, pretty much the
Right.
same.
Okay. Got it. Understood. Yeah. So you can go ahead.
Then in the regions where we don't have the cards yet, and that's the recent news, we made available international IBANs. So say you're a user in Singapore where WireX card is not available yet. It will become available in August. But even now, being in Singapore, you can get inside your WireX account, you get in a Singapore dollar account, and you can use it to buy crypto or to sell crypto. Obviously, that's until the time when the card is available. When all the card is in more demand, and we've been talking about it with your Latin American team, with Mariano, that this is, it's a solution. It's not ideal, but it's something. And now, very recently, we rolled out Dai outside of Europe. So now you can not just make it our employees, which we did a special arrangement for, but every user in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, everywhere except the countries where we can't offer the service yet, such as China, for example. In Japan, we're being super conservative because we have a license application in place. It's been there for over a year now. You know how Japanese are super strict, especially after the exchange hacks that happened early in 2018. If
Right.
those hadn't happened, we would have had our license now already. But it did, and then they kind of stepped back and made everything a lot slower. They came back on, with 400 questions on our application. We got back to them. They had another 100 questions. So it's an iterative process. So in countries like that, Japan, for example, US, where we're in the process of rolling out their own cards, we are being very conservative and we're not taking any chances. But in all other geographies, you can see the full list on WireX website. People have international IBANs, which they can use to send fiat currency via SWIFT to their other bank accounts or fund them via SWIFT from their other bank accounts. And now Dai is available there as well. So what a user in Argentina, for example, can do is fund his WireX account via his standard bank account, and then use this to buy Dai with a very low fee and send it with no fee to his friends or family or whoever in Europe, or the other way around, where it can be spent from the card.
Right. That's really cool. So, so the next jurisdictions on the list. So the Dai card is going to be available. You said in Latin American countries. Where else?
It's not just the Dai card; it's the WireX
Yeah,
cards in
in
general.
general. Right.
And
Right.
so next is APAC, which is pretty much all Asian countries except the big ones, unfortunately, except China, India, and Indonesia. But the likes of Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Thailand, all those will have WireX cards.
Nice. And you said that this is going to be happening in August, or are you already launching
That's
in certain
that's the plan.
places?
We already have all the partnerships in place. We already have all the sponsorships signed. We already have cards in production. It's
Wow.
just a matter of the physical launch.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So you guys already secured the licenses in these places, is basically what
Yes,
you're saying.
correct. Yeah.
Nice. So the remaining places to secure licenses are the hard ones like Japan and the US.
US is also on the US is hopefully going to happen faster than Japan. In US, we
Yeah.
also have all the needed partnerships in place. We already have the MSB, Money Service Business License, in Canada. In the US, it's a bit more complicated because we have to go by each state individually. But we're initially we're going to ride on our partner banks network. So as we do for example, in Europe now, technically we don't have to have the FCA license, which we do have, but we have it rather to anticipate the regulation than react last minute. It also helps us roll out products like WireX Business, but technically speaking, we could be issuing the cards using the license of our issuer partner, which is Contis. But
Yeah.
we do have that as a backup, but we have our own license as well. So we want to be super secure.
So going off on a bit of a tangent, what's the difference between the corporate WireX card and like the consumer WireX cards?
The main difference is that the corporate card does not exist yet. Corporate accounts, corporate accounts do exist. There's no card yet. What the corporate accounts allows businesses is quite unprecedented. A company can have a number of bank accounts. For the moment, it's euros, pounds, Singapore and Hong Kong dollars, and Japanese yen, and then they have crypto wallets as well, and it's all in one platform. So you can receive your payment in Bitcoin and instantly convert it into euros and pay your bill in euros. The conversion happens at interbank rates for fiat currencies and at OTC rates for cryptocurrencies. We don't charge anything there apart from the monthly subscription. And at the moment, we don't even charge a monthly subscription because we're still we have launched, but we're not making it super public. We're taking it quite slowly, conservatively, onboarding companies one by one.
Right. That's
Although
really
we have a few thousand on the waiting list.
So Georgy, how big of a company is WireX? Because it sounds like you guys are taking on quite a lot.
In terms of achievements, it sounds quite big. In terms of employee numbers, we're also not particularly small. We're over 170 people worldwide
Wow.
now. We
Wow.
have 6 offices. Main one is in London, is the headquarters. The biggest one is in Kiev in Ukraine, the R&D office. Over 100 people are there. Engineers, testers, we have support there. But in terms of financial size of the company, again, transaction wise, in terms of volumes, in terms of number of transactions, we process about 30 to 40,000 transactions a day on the cards, on the platform, etc. But
Wow.
in terms of investments received is how you generally evaluate the size of a startup. We're still relatively small. We had a small angel investment in the very beginning. We had a relatively small crowdfunding round, and then we had a Series A from Japanese venture capital SBI, which is for those that don't know, it's an offset of SoftBank. Everyone knows SoftBank, so it's one of the biggest and one of the most active crypto investors in Japan and pretty much globally. But the investment itself was only 3 million. So for this industry where people are used to crazy figures from ICOs, we're quite an exception. We have not had. We're raising a round now of 10 to 15 million, but up to date, what we hear from investors quite often is, "Did you really achieve that with 3 million?" We say, "Well, we did."
Yeah, yeah, you guys are on fire. It sounds like you guys are uh, just bulldozing ahead into the future. I love it. You guys are doing great stuff.
Oh, thank you. So are you, and that's what makes us very similar. We have very similar philosophies. That's why I think the partnership so far has been working quite well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna take this time to kind of open it up to the people on the call. If you guys have any questions for Georgy, and it just occurred to me that we didn't actually introduce who you are, Georgy. So Georgy is the co-founder of WireX. I think it was you and Dimitri, right? Lazarev. I don't know how to.
Lazarus, yeah,
Yeah,
Dmitry and
yeah,
Pavel, the two co-CEOs at the moment. They
nice.
were the ones to come up with the idea. I joined them a little bit a few months later. Still very early enough. Yeah.
Right. Right on. So if you guys have any questions about the WireX cards and the company and just anything in general, feel free to ask. Uh, and then in a few more minutes, we're gonna move on to like the rest of the agenda and cover the MakerDAO universe. Also, feel free to type your questions in the chat. I'll happily ask them for you. All right. Well, it looks like people do not have any questions. We did you covered a lot of details. That was a really rich discussion, Georgi. So I really appreciate you coming on the call and talking with us. That was really kind of eye opening for me personally. So thank you.
Well, if there are any questions later on, then probably the easiest would be for you to accumulate them and channel them to me on.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, I
All
see
right.
a question now. We do have a US office, Bo, yes, and some US-based employees. The office is in Atlanta. It's still pretty small right now. Uh, the strategy we're using is we have the headquarters in London, which has all the central functions like finance, marketing, legal. Basically, it's the brain center. Then we have the R&D center in Kiev, in Ukraine, where all the development happens. Quite good pool of talent there. Still old physics, mathematical school from the Soviet Union, which makes for very good coders, as most of you probably know. Like Russians, Ukrainians are quite good coders. In the regions where we don't have a massive presence yet, we generally start with small setup because you have to be smart with it. We have a couple of business development people, and most of the people we have in the regions are actually compliance people because this is the industry where that's very important. So in the US, pretty much compliance and business development. Same in Canada, same in Singapore, same in Japan.
Very nice. Did you guys already file for licenses in a bunch of states, or are you guys doing all the due diligence right now? Like, what stage are you in with the US?
A few states, I think applications are already in place, yes. And apart from that, the key partnerships that would allow us to issue cards, they're signed with a couple of banks and who will be issuing cards for us with KYC AML providers. So those are the key ones that allow to start.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, Georgy, thank you so much for coming on the call again.
Thank you, guys.
And
Yeah.
feel free to stick around. I'm gonna post the agenda one more time for the people that came in a bit late. But if you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, I have
Either
to
way,
run, unfortunately, but if any questions come up later, send them to me. We can have another call, join another call, or just address them via email, however.
yeah, sure. Oh, actually, before you go, Akiva just
Mm-hmm.
asked a quick question. I'll read it out
Mm-hmm.
for the people that are watching the call. Do you anticipate more people will start to use the Dai deposit feature once the Dai savings rate is released? And can it be used as a high interest savings account? So, like, what are your thoughts? To rephrase a little bit, what are your thoughts on like the integratability between like the DSR and like more second layer or second order features? And how WireX interacts with them.
Well, I think looking at the general use case as we understand it, maybe we don't understand it fully yet. We'll try to improve. But we see that it is used for hedging. And when
Yeah,
it's used for hedging, obviously, if you have a choice between a stable coin that just sits in your wallet and a stable coin that generates interest, I think the choice is quite obvious. So I think, yeah, it's quite an interesting feature. Not
yeah,
to mention all the planned developments with multi-collateral and all those things. And just generally, the project is so super complex. Like whenever I read about it, almost every blog post, every article, I have to read twice. Yeah.
well, we're working on making that more accessible.
Well, I mean, it's a complex concept.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not about the those articles. They are made as clear as they can be, but still require some
Oh yeah,
in-depth thinking. Yeah.
that's for sure. A lot of self-study if you want to understand MakerDAO well enough. But yeah, so thank you for coming, Georgi. I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot.
So everybody, I posted the agenda in the call. I saw the celebrity Mr. Burton joined us. Just joking. Well, he's a little bit of a celebrity, right? But either way, Rich, if you want the agendas down here, I posted it a couple times. Everybody, feel free to tag along. But we're gonna start off with some of the events that we're gonna be a part of in the coming week, and then also kind of the bigger events that we're gonna be a part of, spanning out the next couple of months. Which I only really have one. And so I guess I'll go with the big event first. But MakerDAO is going to be participating in DevCon 5 in Osaka, Japan. And that's going to be in October 8th through October 11th. So if you guys are going to be in Japan, more details on how we're going to be participating closer to the event. But besides that, smaller events that are going on this week. I know Lenka's in the call. Lenka, you want to go over some of the stuff going on in Europe?
Yes. Hi, guys. Sorry I missed you last week. I was actually together with Nicola and Lasse from our integrations team. We were in Amsterdam. There was a big different type of event that we normally tend to participate in. It was Money 2020 Europe. And we actually did an experiment by airdropping some Dai to these corporates and suits. Besides that, I just want to mention we also met with Pavel, the CEO from WireX. So that was really great to come and say hello. And we also had a couple people coming over and referring to you, Rich. They were from 11FS, who have a Blockchain Insider podcast, etc. So yes, besides Money 20, there was a Dutch blockchain week, and there was a bunch of events that were related to tokenomics, DeFi, and other aspects with different audiences. So it's been, and also to developers. So it's been an eventful week.
So
This is just to wrap up.
Really quickly, at Money 2020, since there are a lot of sort of traditional finance people there, what was their reception to the MakerDAO desk?
Yes. So we have met with several. We had a booth, so we were actually out there, and anyone who came received a flyer how to claim their first stablecoin in the swag bag. So we had three types of people to join us. For instance, we had people who are already our partners or discussing in talks with us regarding partnerships to actually like recognize Maker and come and find our booth right away. We had visits, as I mentioned, from WireX, from Repeal, etc. Then we had some other projects that are involved in blockchain space. For instance, people from BitPay came to chat with us, or let's say VCs that have invested in crypto came to talk to us. And then there was another type of audience that was completely new to stablecoins that we basically educated into what stablecoins are, that they're not all made equal, introduce them to Dai, show them some stats on our system, introduce them to what will happen when the MCD launches, etc., etc. And we've been partnering up with Connext guys. Those are the ones who created DaiCard.io. We've been using their payment channel to do this airdrop, or we've been using this payment channel for them to claim their first Dai, and then we've been interacting at the booth with it just to show how fast the transactions could be using this. So there was a lot of wow moments and wow effect when it comes to this. So it's been mostly introducing the concept of stablecoin, Dai being present, Maker project being present, and creating this opening up minds from the people from the CXO positions at fintech and payment companies attending the event.
That's pretty huge. That's awesome. Cool. That's a solid recap.
Thanks. I'm just writing a report now, so it's fresh in my mind. And yes, and kudos to everyone who joined and who came to talk to us, etc. But I want to switch back into what is ahead of us. And maybe I just want to mention that this morning we had Jen from our BD team to speak in a panel focusing on DeFi. So that one we missed. It was CogX conference, COGX. And now we have Jen speaking at another event, actually tomorrow, again in London. It's a Crypto Compare Digital Asset Summit. And again, the panel will be very close to our topic, the future of stablecoins. Then we have two events happening in Denmark. One will be Folkemøde, which is a very special concept. It's happening on a small island in Denmark, and it is a very special format for a festival because it's a people's meeting in translation, if I translate it literally, and it stands for a political festival, democracy festival in Denmark. There's a lot of interaction between the politicians and different non-profit organization, different types of organization in the government or non-government, discussing different topics. And we'll have Lasse present there discussing how to foster growth in the region when it comes to tech startups, from the perspective of us being one of the largest companies in the fintech space. And we will also have, let me just check it. And on Saturday, we will have him to discuss, how to, make use of digitalization and to faster growth of business and employment. So at these levels. Then we will have a Copenhagen Fintech Week, which will be in Copenhagen. And this will be a set of a lot of events, but the main part is the conference on the 18th and 19th. And we will have first a short pitch from Maker to the international companies coming, so a different audience. And we will also have Rune in a panel speaking about the, the financial inclusion, the decentralized finance aspects, how fintech can help, how a fintech can work for the impact. So those are our nearest events. Sorry, David?
I was gonna say, I feel like Copenhagen has a fintech week like every 3 weeks.
It's yearly. So this is the big thing happening here
Yeah.
now, and then people will start, taking their holidays, and we will quiet out. So this is it for me: London and Copenhagen or Denmark events.
Very nice, very nice. So the only other event I know of that's going on this week is actually happening in the Philippines, in Manila. And it's a block devs / consensus Philippines community meetup, and our community manager Jocelyn is going to be there representing. And yeah, that's about it for events. And so I'm going to launch into sort of the stuff that's going on with governance and partner integrations and all that. So as some of you've seen, yesterday a new governance poll was put up, and as usual, there's a ton of options on it. I think 4 down and 4 up for adjusting the stability fee. And at the moment, I believe the 1% down option is winning by a small margin, and then the second in line is the keep it as it is. And so, just for reference for people watching the call, currently the stability fee is at 16.5%. So they are polling to lower it right now to 15.5. So yeah, that's what's been going on. There was no executive poll on Friday because last week's governance poll actually pointed to kind of the option that had been passed during the week. So we did not have an executive vote on this Friday. Yeah. And then besides that, we had our awesome weekly narrative on MakerDAO posted by Matthew Rabinowitz. These are, I always plug these because they're so great. They're a really short, awesome synopsis on what's been going on in the realm of MakerDAO governance, what people have been talking about, thinking about. And so read up if you guys are interested and don't have time to check out the call. Also, just a note, the recording of the call this week went up a few days late because YouTube locked us out of our accounts, unfortunately, but we got it back and everything is posted and viewable. So, as well as the summary, which can be found in the discussion thread, which I realized I did not put in the agenda document. But if you go on our subreddit, mkr.gov, you could, it's always sticky at the top, the most recent discussion thread. So you could find that stuff there. As for some integrations and partnerships that I've seen this week, there was the big Coinbase announcement where they're doing a Dai module for their Earn Crypto and like educate people about crypto kind of program that they run, where there's a couple of videos and like a quiz, and you could earn, I think it's like 6 or 10 Dai or something like that, depending on your region. Not 100% sure how much Dai you can make, but it's cool. If you want to teach a friend who doesn't know much about stuff or Dai or anything, and they have a Coinbase at least, you could put them on and they can get some free money. But yeah, it's a really, really cool initiative. They're educating their customers and thereby kind of increasing awareness of the space and increasing adoption, really. So yeah. Besides that, I saw Someway Jane from Instadap. They posted up a blog post talking about their plans to bridge between MakerDAO and Compound. And so the idea is that in times when you want to refinance your CDP to a lower interest rate, it's really annoying to do it manually. Somebody described the process that he took to do it as 12 transactions of withdrawing a little collateral, selling it, locking it, borrowing collateral. It's just really kind of a headache. And so they're going to be coming out with a feature to make that refinance really easy, sort of in like a one-click fashion. So I thought that was really cool and worth mentioning. DYDX launched a Dai USDC market, so that was pretty cool. There was also an integration with Axie Infinity, which is a really cool game. Kind of modeled around NFTs, and it's kind of on chain, and you could own the stuff in the game, and it's really cool. Check it out if you guys are into video games. But Maker and Axie Infinity are partnering, so there's some Dai themed NFTs in there. So if you're a CDP owner, and I think they have like 3 different tiers. If you had drawn, I think, over 100 Dai from your CDP, they give you like one type of NFT, which is really nice. But then there's another tier which is like 1,000 or something, and then there's like another tier which is, I think, like 18,000 or 12,000 or something. So you get like this sort of god tier NFT that, oh, you're a big CDP user. So yeah, if you want to claim those NFTs, you have to have the CDP open through, I think, the end of June. And as long as it's open through the end of June, I think they're able to track how much Dai you draw. I don't really know how that works, but either way, yeah. So that's about it for the partnerships and integrations this week. There were a few podcasts that came out, and one more that I found out about just now, since Richard Burton posted it in the chat. But there was a Spanish podcast put out with our head of Oracle's Mariano Conti. Well, I guess he's now the head of smart contracts, so his title changed a bit. But the Oracle god Mariano Conti, he did a Spanish podcast talking about MakerDAO. So check that out if you have Spanish-speaking friends. Send it over their way. There was also an interview with Lassie, our head of integrations, about MakerDAO. And it was an interview about Maker, Dai, multi-collateral debt positions, and it was done for Bitcoin Magazine NL. And NL, I think, is Netherlands. Yeah. Besides that, there was also a...
Correct.
Yeah, right? Okay, good. All right. I'm not so uneducated.
He did it at the Money 20. That's why I know.
Oh, okay, cool.
Thanks for
that makes
pointing
sense.
that out, David.
That makes sense. All right. Yeah, and then lastly, there was an interview with Gustav, who's on our business development team, and it was on a Korean publication. It was done in English, but I think all the subtitles are in Korean, so check it out. And then, yeah, that's it for podcast/interviews. There was one blog post in the Maker blog this week, the new Dai numbers momentum report. So there was an old Dai numbers report that was put out a few months ago, and people really loved it because it's a lot of like just hard statistics and hard numbers pulled directly from the blockchain and analyzing Dai, its growth, its usage. And so there was a lot of really cool numbers in this most recent one. I think the one that got the most attention was that Dai has been experiencing 20% consistent exponential growth month over month in I think wallet ownership and also transactional usage. So Dai is doing really well, and that's really great to see. Yeah. Check out the report. There's even more numbers in there if you're that kind of person. I know I am. So yeah, really great blog post. All right. Now I'm gonna launch into some highlights from the community. By the way, if anybody has any questions or any mentions or anything, feel free to interrupt me at any time. So to run through this pretty quickly, so every first Monday of the month, we've been doing this thing called the community mentions of the month, and it was originally a Reddit post where we would curate a bunch of like the best Reddit threads from our subreddits and kind of randomly award people some Reddit platinum and a Dai tip just to kind of give some appreciation to our community and give people the spotlight a bit, and to really encourage people to do high effort, thoughtful contributions to our community. And so that wasn't getting too much engagement. So we were thinking of ways to switch it up. And so this month, instead of doing the Reddit thread, we did a tweet storm, and that seemed to get a lot more engagement, which we should have known because not everybody lives on our subreddit, and the Twitter sphere is vast in the world of crypto. And so I think that we were going to be moving that to kind of a regular monthly tweet storm, where we just curate a bunch of like the best stuff that we saw this month from the community. So yeah, and that got a lot of engagement, and I really loved how many people saw that and checked it out, and were able to actually see these resources that might have flown by without being noticed. But yeah. Besides that, Dai.decipher.io, which is Vishesh's domain for the 24-hour analysis of the Dai peg, got more incremental. So I posted in the agenda a screenshot of what it looks like now. So he, instead of there being like 4 or 5 bars representing like a penny change each, or like half a penny change each, I forgot what it used to be. Now there's in excess of like 24 bars, and you could see the volume weighted transactions throughout the last 24 hours on all these various exchanges. And it's really just kind of like music to my eyes. It's such a beautiful sight. But yeah, gives us a good view into the Dai peg and what's happening with it over 24 hours. And for those of you that don't know what volume weighted average price is, it's basically the idea that whenever you do a transaction, a certain amount of it, you're going to incur some slippage. And based on the current prices of the market, your effective, average price over how much you trade is, you kind of have to figure out the average if you want an accurate single price of like what you're getting. So yeah, so check it out. Some people get average prices lower than $1, a little bit over, but in general, it's all trading very closely around that dollar peg. All right, and so a bunch of really great articles came out this week. I put up a couple that I might not be ready to share because I know the author wrote that he is still editing them a bit, so they're going to be posted on Reddit once they're really ready to be shared. But there are 2 articles called "An Options-Based Approach to Measuring the Risk-Adjusted Stability Fee of a MakerDAO CDP," and it's basically some math into stability fees and how to approach them based on options-based pricing. And so, yeah, if you guys are into the deep finance of CDP stuff, check out those articles. They're good. I haven't read them yet. I'm just saying they're good because they probably are. So besides that, there was a couple of great articles on DeFi, what it is and what it isn't, accelerating the adoption of DeFi. It's another article. There was another one on XDAI and the burner wallet, demonstrating the power of blockchain. There was a bunch of PublishOX articles that I saw come out this week, which I suspect was a result of Dan basically calling out and incentivizing people to do some articles on PublishOX since they recently integrated Dai as kind of their tipping and base currency. So if you are unfamiliar with PublishOX, it's like similar to Steemit, so you could tip people on their content and things of that nature. So check it out, yeah. And then there were a bunch of kind of like tailing articles about the Dai in Numbers momentum report, basically just reworded and requoting the data that's found in that Maker blog post. And yeah, it's always good to see this kind of information circulating around, so I still think it's worth a mention. Besides that, I didn't add too many great threads from Reddit, but there was one that was really interesting. It was about the PID controller for off-chain stability fee estimation. So if you guys have been following along in our governance calls, Matthew Rabinowitz has really been championing the idea of researching and developing a PID system for automatically adjusting the stability fee. And for those of you that don't know what a PID controller is, it's I forgot exactly what PID stands for. It's super mathematical, but basically it's a controller to you feed it receives some outputs and it kind of balances between them and finds a sort of control based on the outputs it's receiving. So I know that's a pretty shitty explanation, but bear with me. Basically, it'll give us a way to give a recommendation for what the stability fee should be based on data that we're feeding that sort of algorithm or PID, if you will. And so there's been a lot of kind of talk and thinking around that idea, and I believe that the way that it would happen, if it happens, is that at first it would really be a recommendation for the stability fee rather than just giving it full on access to change it, and then maker governance would take that into account when they are doing their manual votes. But eventually, as that is further developed and further refined and sharpened, it could potentially be given actual control with like veto power by maker holders, for instance. But in general, it's just a really cool way to get a recommendation on what the stability fee should actually be. And so, besides that, the last thing I saw in the community this week that was really interesting was Andreas Antonopoulos covering Maker and Dai in one of his Q&A videos on YouTube that he posts. That was really cool. Andreas, he's for me personally, he's a big hero of mine. And I guess hero is like a strong word, but like, listening to a lot of his talks in like early 2017, 2016, that guy gets you fired up about cryptocurrency, let me tell you. And so he was a actual real pleasure, real nice guy. I met him in ETH Denver, and so it was really cool to see him covering Maker and Dai. So yeah, besides that, there's not much else that I have to mention. But if you guys have anything that you feel you want to mention, feel free to bring it up. And also, if you guys have any questions or anything you want to discuss, it's all you guys. There's about 5 minutes left in the call, though. And if not, we can end it a little bit early. And nice, Andrew. I'm glad you voted. What did you vote for? Probably lowering it to 12.5, right? Anyway, all right. Well, it looks like there's no questions or discussion to be had. So thank you guys for coming to the call. I hope you guys got something out of it. And I appreciate you guys coming, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, David.